On October 10th, 19 years ago, one of the biggest lightweight fights that was outside of the UFC. This was not the UFC. It was Rumble on the Rock, which was a promotion owned by J.D. Penn, B.J. Penn's brother. It was put on in Hawaii. Every show was, and it had a matchup between the man that everyone was saying was the best lightweight fighter in the world, Takanori Gomi, going against B.J. Penn. Now, B.J. Penn at the time had about 7 fights total. Takanori Gomi was coming off of his only loss against Joaquin Hansen, a guy that you know was a stud of a guy. He would smoke just before the fight started, go out there and act like he could go all day long. Just a crazy Norwegian bastard that was tough as hell. But B.J. Penn and Takanori Gomi put on an incredible performance that night, October 10th, 19 years ago, and we're going to talk about that fight right now.
John, I was there live at that fight in Hawaii. It was fantastic. I was out there. Rich Chow out there. Phil Baroni out there. We were out there. Rude Boy was there, obviously. We had a great time at the fights. The fights were amazing. I mean, I got to be honest. I was in the lightweight division at the time. Didn't know who Takanori Gomi was. I had heard of him, rumblings through it. I'd never seen him fight. You know, all of his fights were in Japan. There was a lot of buzz about him and how good he was, how talented he was, big heavy hitter, good anti-wrestler, all of these things on how he'd be able to take BJ down and dominate him, how he'd be able to outbox BJ. He was really had long limbs, all of those things. I trained with BJ Penn for, I don't know, I'd say 3-4 years before this fight happened. And I was there at that rules meeting and they came down. I mean, this is one of the craziest moments, John, for me as a young, I think I was only like 24, 25 at the time. And I'm sitting there and I was good friends with BJ and I knew how good he was because I had trained with him. He used to beat the fucking shit out of me like all the time. It was me, Rich Crunkleton, Kelly Delonte. He was just somebody that had dexterity. He had power. He was someone that didn't really ever box, but he had power and his combinations came from weird angles. He believed in his boxing. He believed in his hands. And he obviously knew he could believe in his jiu-jitsu. It was next level at that time. He just was someone that he exudes.
He exuded confidence. No doubt about it.
There you go. He exudes confidence. And when this came down to the rules and what they wanted to allow, it originally started off, they were going to have unified, which was considered to be unified rules, the UFC rules. Well, Gomi came from Japan, where you were allowed to soccer kick, you were allowed to head stomp, you were allowed to, I believe, no elbows on the ground, but you're allowed to knee the head on the grounds.
Yep.
But in this rules meeting here, BJ was sitting with his arms crossed against the wall, and Gomi's translator was translating to basically JD Penn, which is BJ's brother, who owned the promotion. And he goes, "Hey, what about knees to the head on the ground?" And then BJ goes, "Whatever you want." Like in a straight face with his arms crossed, whatever he wants. Yeah. And didn't even flinch. What about soccer kicks on the ground? Whatever he wants. Yeah. Soccer kicks on the ground. Yeah. Head stomps too. Yeah. It was constant, just whatever. Yeah. Whatever you want. And it was
Sounds
that
good.
face. Yeah. It was that face that got me like, oh, here you are, BJ, making the rules to your own fight. And you don't give a fuck.
Well, he wasn't making the rules. He was just okaying them because Gomi was making the rules and BJ was just sitting there going, whatever you want, whatever you want. And that is exuding confidence of, I don't give a fuck what rule set we use. I am going to fuck you up. And you go to that fight. That fight started. You want to talk about a feeling out process. There was none.
No.
Those guys started off and BJ took him down, which a lot of people were saying, not sure if BJ could take him down.
Yeah.
BJ did take him down and immediately started some heavy ground and pound, got to positions on Gomi, had Gomi in trouble, but Gomi did come back at times and he got to his feet and he would slug it out with BJ. but you had to look at this fight. At no time did you look and say, Gomi's got it. Gomi's coming on. It was always, is this it? Is BJ gonna finish him now? And when it didn't happen, it was just more of an ass beating all the way up to that point where finally a rear naked choke and a tap out. And Gomi took the most severe beating of his career that night. Unbelievable the amount of damage that he took and kept going. So you knew that people could say what they want. He was called the Fireball Kid. Man, he had no quit in him because he took some intense shots during that fight. I remember watching it going, Jesus Christ, he's way tougher than I ever gave him credit for.
Yeah. He never gave up. In that first round, I believe he had his back taken, almost got choked rear naked twice, got mounted, was getting beaten down from the mount. His feet were just literally like just flopping around as he was giving his back, giving mount, giving back. And I had been caught in that position many of times, and I could feel his pain at that moment of just the control. That when people go back and you look at someone like a BJ Penn, all these new fans and all the fans that have come along, you know, when these fight nights started or whatever it was, they don't understand how good BJ was back in the day. The control he had, the jiu-jitsu that he had, that mount pressure. I mean, I had seen him hold down heavyweight fighters, heavyweight wrestlers. I had seen him control, get rear nakeds. I mean, the longest story, and I've said this before on our show, I think once before. At AKA, I was training, and I would only come in and train at night because I had a day job. Well, BJ was there during the day, and he would sometimes come in and hit miss with Hav at night. And I had said for the longest time, because I'd come in at night and train with Bob and Frank and, you know, Kelly Delonte and Ryan Bowe and Charles Taylor and any other fighter we could get in to come in there, Mike Swick, you know, and then other guys started trickling in. And I'd heard BJ's good, BJ's this, BJ's that on the ground. He's got power in his hands. I'm like, bring this. I was like, yeah, whatever, man. I said, no one's that good. Da, 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 da. Well, Hav and Bob brought him in one night to grapple with me. And I kid you not, I think he tapped me 4 or 5 times in like probably under 4 minutes. And I was like, oh, this guy's a different level. Like this is what I need. Like honestly, he's a big reason why I just quit my job and started going to the noon training sessions. I was like, fuck it. If I'm going to do this, I can't afford for guys like this to be fucking me up the way he was doing it. So I quit my job. I said, hey, I'm all in, you know, and I was literally just fucking living off whatever my savings was, taking fights as often as I possibly could to make $300 to $500, you know, to get me through my next rent session. It was like that. You know, like I said, Bob Cook had bought me food sometimes late at night, but a lot of what I owe credit to is guys like Bob Cook, Javier Mendez, but BJ helped get me to focus on, look, you can't train half the time and expect to be one of the best in the world. And this guy, after watching him, I'm like, damn, this is insane. How good he is, how top pressure he is, how good of boxing he has. And then when I saw him, you know, the way he beat Joey Gilbert in the UFC, and the way, because this was after he had his run.
Oh, you know,
against,
yeah.
So he had beat Joey Gilbert.
He started off with Joey Gilbert. Next fight,
knocked out Dean Thomas. Knocked out Dean Thomas next
who
fight,
was a stud at the time.
Stud.
I mean, just a stud.
Doesn't get the credit he deserves.
No.
Dean Thomas never got the credit he deserves.
No,
they
never
Carl
did.
Uno, 11 seconds. Then he goes in and fights
he loses to Jens Pulver.
Yep, he loses to Jens Pulver.
And it was really, if you looked at it, that fight, like he was beating Jens early in the fight, dominating a lot of it. Jens was hanging in there, and he caught Jens in an armbar right at the end of the round. And thought he had it, and round ends, I stop it, and Jens basically said, you know, let go, and BJ thought he tapped, and it was like, no, he did not tap, and he goes back, and from that moment, BJ's performance dropped because he felt like he had something, it wasn't there, and he didn't have enough experience. He was so young in the sport.
4 fights into his career.
Oh, I know. Trust me.
Yeah.
It was crazy what he was doing at the time. And then you look at every fight from that point, just dominated good fighters. Just positioning wise, his stand up was coming along. It was never that where you looked and you said, oh my God, he's an incredible stand-up fighter. But then he started hurting guys with the stand-up, and he was always he would take shots, and you go, that landed clean, and he just walked through it like it was nothing. You go, the dude had a chin, man, and he had the ability. Randy Couture, Matt Lindland, Chael Sonnen, BJ went up to work out with them when he was going to fight Matt Hughes. And Randy Couture told me, he goes, John, dude, I could rarely get that little bastard to the ground. He goes, and when I did, it was like a damn spring. He would all of a sudden be popping right back up. He goes, it was a pain in the ass to keep him down. He goes, Matt Hughes got his hands full, right? And so, going into the fight, I was like, well, I wasn't reffing it, but it was like, BJ's got a good shot at this. And he ended up winning it. And so, he went into that. The whole reason he was fighting in Rumble in the Rock, little contract dispute. He wanted more money in the UFC. That didn't happen. So he started fighting for his brother. And it really became, it was the Penn show. And man, this fight right here definitely proved that the guy that was the best lightweight fighter in the world was living on the big island of Hawaii, because he put it on, Gomi.
And he wasn't under contract.
No.
That's the thing. You had the best lightweight fighter in the world not under UFC contract, and that was huge at the time. And so when he made his way back to the UFC, it was show me the money.
Well,
because all this stuff was done under his own brother's promotion, which is all family funded, and they knew what they were doing. They were making their brother the biggest star in Hawaiian history. And a little throwback. I know we're trying to keep this tight, but the little throwback to this is, I can't remember if it was Joe Silva or if it was Dana White, but one of them didn't want to sign BJ. No, he's just the jiu-jitsu guy. We don't want to see guys with more knockouts.
No, that wasn't Dana. That was Joe.
I believe it. I thought it was Joe too. I don't want to throw Joe under. But
well, Joe looked at him like he was just a jiu-jitsu guy. Yeah, he's good at jiu-jitsu, but and he was wrong.
Yeah,
he was wrong.
And so I didn't want to throw Joe under because I wasn't 100%. So, but I do know they almost didn't sign him. They was like, and BJ was like, hey, I'm not doing this half-ass. I'm here to win. And then after his first fight where he just mounted Joey Gilbert, got his back, pushed face down, finished him that way. Then he went on and knocked out Dean Thomas the way he did with the standing omoplata first, slid off, got to his feet, knee up the middle, boom, boom, lights out, done. Same thing to Uno right after. Everyone's like, oh, I thought he was the jiu-jitsu guy. Shit, this guy's knocking everyone out.
Well, you got to figure that Cal Uno fought Jens Pulver for the very first lightweight title. That went 5 rounds. BJ knocked Cal Uno out in 11 seconds.
Yep. And then when they went into that,
when
they went into that main event, though, for the Jens Pulver and BJ Penn fight, BJ Penn was the bigger favorite. What was it, like 3-1 or 4-1? Yeah, huge favorite. And then on top of that, because he had done so well in his first 3 fights, because the UFC was only signing fighters to 3-fight deals at the time. They had basically just re-upped his contract. We're talking about re-upping, or they had just extended it for 1 fight. After that Jens Pulver fight, I believe he got away from the lightweight division, correct? Or he did the tournament.
No, he did the tournament because it was
the tournament.
Yeah, Cal Uno, Matt Serra. There was I'm trying to think
Dean
who else
Thomas
was in
it.
Yeah, I think Dean Thomas was in that one. So.
Yeah, and that ended up being a draw.
That tournament turned out because of a draw fight. So
yeah. Overall, though, this to me still to this day, hands down, the best lightweight fight I've ever seen in person. Now, I can say there's been some great lightweight fights that I've seen on TV, but this is the best one I've ever seen in person, with the crowd, the energy. The fact is that Takanori came all the way across the country to fight BJ Penn in his own promotion. They funded it all. They flew him out. They put him up. They did all those things so BJ could become a star. And once they realized what BJ was doing over in Rumble in the Rock, the UFC came back and renegotiated for a lot more money. BJ doesn't get the credit he deserves for helping change the game on how to handle free agency. People need to go back and see how he handled stuff as a free agent and what he did to make himself a star outside of the sport. And he made quadruple the amount of money almost anyone was making at that time because of who he was. Now he's got 5 UFC gyms in Hawaii. He's got all these other things that he does with the UFC. He's raking in money left and right, just doing what he loves, being part of something he helped build and the legacy he helped build with the UFC.
Well, what he was part of 19 years ago was part of one of the best lightweight fights that was ever put on, especially outside of the UFC. Incredible performance by both guys.